We are live, and we have got Karen, who lost 25 kilograms with Real Meal Revolution. The first 20 went down in the first 12 weeks or 3 months, and then the rest trickled off over a period. So, Karen, thank you so much for coming to join us. Congratulations on your success.
Thanks, Donna. It's an absolute pleasure.
So, before we go into like the transformation and all the goody stuff, tell me about how bad it got. So I know in your story you said that you'd a lot of things that really come naturally to you in terms of success with business and athleticism, but there was this lingering weight issue that you always battled with.
So you meaning leading up to the weight loss recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a challenge my whole life, and as I said in the write-up. But as my knees got more and more painful, so I couldn't be active, and I couldn't burn it off in the way that I was always burnt off weight. And it was a vicious, nasty circle. And then all the self-hatred just seemed to be piling on, the depression of not being able to be mobile for the, because my knees were damaged, and weight and self-esteem. So over the last 6 years, I mean, it's just got worse and worse.
A lot of people don't really connect the dots, but one of the things that struck me was you said it impacted relationships. How does a weight issue impact relationships?
It's all linked to that self-hatred and body image stuff that's one obsesses with. That, I mean, all the feedback I get is positive, people who like me for me, but for me there's always this blight that I'm too fat, I'm too big, I'm ugly, all the old stuff that just completely chips away at my confidence, and don't even think I'm worthy. That's up. And of course that's an emotional reaction, not a intellectually. I know all the stuff, but the emotional stuff, and that's how. So I wouldn't put myself out there. I undermine myself in relationships, be they not so much in friendships, but socially it's a challenge sometimes, or it used to be. Now I made a concerted effort to change, but we'll get there, I'm sure.
Yeah. So what did actually change? So I know you did eventually join Real Meal, but often like someone signs up for a program when that's the rock bottom. They're like, I actually cannot take this anymore. And then we make a change. But what happens before that point in your mind where you're sitting there and it's like you're in the dark time, the low moment, and then something strikes you and you're like, okay, now I'm going to do this. So tell us about that transition.
I think it had been sitting in the back of my mind, the whole thing, that I linked it a lot, even going through the 12 weeks. I linked it to my stopping smoking process of actually deciding it's not about losing the weight. I wanted to be a different person. It's like I didn't want to be a smoker. I wasn't quitting smoking. I wasn't losing out. I didn't want to be a smoker. So I ran that parallel, that was the final headspace that made me jump into it. Leading up to that, obviously, when I was training for what I was training for physically, for sport, I'd started hooking in with the Sports Science Institute, and I think that's where I first bumped into you with Tim when he was first going, Tim Noakes, when he was first going on that journey, and that made me start rethinking food. But I mean, that was years back, and rethinking, and I did try out, and I think you just started with Real Meal, but I floundered on that. And so then I thought, no, well, I can't give up dairy, I can't give up this, and then I just went downhill again. But that had been sitting in the bottom of my mind, and then I picked up on your Facebook feed or one of your things about how you were doing things slightly differently, and I followed some of your not workshops, some of the stuff you had out there, and it was sitting in my mind, and I knew that I needed to jump, and I was scared, but sitting on a plane in a suit that was one of my fat clothes that it was supposed to fit me when I was still very big, suddenly wasn't, and I had to go all the way up to the meeting in this suit that I was jumping out of, and no, that is enough. You actually need to decide what's happening here. And so I clicked on the button. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. So you clicked on the button, and then you were expecting X, and you got, what did you get? Yeah. So what were you expecting? Because
I was expecting X, and I got X, Y, and Z, and A and B.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew the basics of it, but for me, it wasn't the meal plans. It wasn't anything like that, and I'm probably not really a good example of anybody, because I tend to go all over the place. But it was definitely the stuff that came behind it, definitely looking into the psychology of it, the understanding of nutrition on many levels, and the people that you chose to present it, Vanessa and Bridget, and your mindset things, the whole approach. I mean, there was obviously all the information that you gave us and do give us is overwhelming, and you have to redigest and redigest. And I'm seeing this as a journey that I've just started on. I mean, there is over and above, even if I'd hit my goal weight already, it's still a journey for me. And that's one of the fundamental things that was an ad for me, is that headspace that this isn't a quick fix, and it's a lifetime change. Yeah.
Fascinating. And so what are some of the key changes you've noticed in your own behavior since you started the program?
Sure, that's a big question, Donna. I don't know how to answer these. So many things jumping out of my head. The key changes was
let's start with the food. So, like, you were eating one way, and then you signed up, and so how did you change?
So the biggest thing is sugar, obviously, and it was very scary for me, and it was amazing to jump off that cliff and clear my whole cupboard of all those carbs. I must admit, I couldn't get rid of the sushi rice. I just couldn't. But everything else was just, and it's still, I haven't made sushi with rice, and I haven't eaten rice for whatever months since I started. But that was very scary with the food. But now it's linked to that is just awareness of the carbs, and it's not scary, and I don't need those carbs. The potatoes and the rice and the pastas, because there's so many other amazing things out there that one can cook with, because I do love cooking.
So
I've changed in my whole view on cooking. Sorry, yeah.
Well, so I was going to ask what your view on cooking is now. So you said you've changed your whole view.
Not view. I mean, I love cooking, and for me, cooking is, I mean, I'm not really very good at following recipes, although I have dipped into yours, which are amazing. But I quite like cooking for friends and knowing that Sam loves curry, and so design it and designing and adding this and thinking with her in mind, and then cooking for her. So I still have that love for food, but I just have shifted my things that I do not have to have a typical meat and potato like mindset. I can cook with all sorts of things and make it equally delicious.
Amazing.
Cabbage. I have a different view on cabbage, that's for sure. And onions. And another thing is just how taking sugar out of your diet, you start tasting these things in the food, like onions, how sweet onions are, and those type of things, which is amazing. It's like fragrance.
I remember that changing for me with so I had this thing where I worked in a kitchen in London, and when I went there, I went in 2 patches of 2 months with like a couple months between. And the first time we had a huge bucket of chips in this metal bowl that used to sit under hot lights, and basically all day I just used to dip the spare chips in ketchup and eat them. And then I put on weight, and I was like kind of quite overweight. And then I came home and and then I went back, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. And luckily it was the Christmas season, so there was this big bowl of steamed veg. And I remember I quit sugar. That's for this like 3 or 3 month period. And I remember like in the beginning, I used to taste the the Mange 2 was the main thing, Mange 2. And like, I remember tasting and thinking, this is so gross. All I want to do is eat a chip. And by the end of it, like the flavor of the Mange 2 was so sweet because you're not getting sugar from anywhere else, that you start noticing it. Like carrots are really sweet, and apples
Oh
are
yes,
actually,
absolutely.
apples are like.
I nearly wrestled somebody down with sugar snaps, peas yesterday. It's like she's had them, and like, yeah, I'd love some of this. Like, come on. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Victoria Webster's here. She says, "Well done to you," which is great. So, Karen, what else changed? So there was the change of the way that you cook, but you also said that you learned some of the stuff from the psychology of eating, and perhaps the mindset things. What were the moments that you experienced where you were like, "Wow, I've never thought of that being in a weight loss program"? Were there any moments that you had there?
Oh, sorry, I don't want dead space on your feed,
fine.
but there were so many moments. Hey?
No, I said everyone's watching you think, which is great.
Oh yeah, great. You don't want to be inside my mind, though. So certainly the psychology of things. I don't know if I could pin down anything, but particularly the being kind to yourself. It just amplified that whole thing of not like having to be the strong person that went on a diet and held their ground and lost the weight. It was completely different view of things that, it's an ongoing story. You need to be kind to yourself, and it's a journey. It's not suddenly, it's, well, quoting Atomic Habits and that, not quoting, but that concept of its little incremental steps. And it's fairly self-evident. I mean, it's obvious. But that was really useful. And I mean, I'm a coach, a sports coach, and I was almost quoting that the other day, of saying, you're not an Olympic archer yet. You don't have Olympic habits. You're not going to perform like an Olympic archer. So don't be so hard on yourself that you're not releasing the string properly. It's baby steps. It's part of a journey, and does that
answers the question. So basically one of the main things was the compassion, and then the other thing was the James Clear Atomic Habits. So basically, tiny changes in the long run make a bigger impact than going all in from the start.
Exactly.
That's a tough one here, because when people see weight loss, they want, you reach a point where you want to lose weight and you're like, I have to lose all of it immediately, and so you want to lose your kilogram a week, which is possible biologically, but the habits actually take much longer to build. So if you had to tell someone, no, you can lose, you're not going to lose any weight for the first 4 months, but you're going to build rock solid habits, and after that it's going to be great. Like, no one would ever do it. So how do you, and this is also maybe a head scratcher, but like, how have you married the idea of tiny changes but also gotten fast results? Because you lost a lot of weight really fast, but you're saying,
I didn't notice. I honestly didn't notice. And what was different also, that I didn't obsess with the scale, and I'd committed to, this is the journey. And every night I thought, oh, I suppose I should weigh myself and see. And then I'll get a bit nervous because I thought I was off track. So it actually was not difficult at all, I think now the journey to continue is probably more, and I need to pull myself back in again, because I haven't got you guys holding my hand, and I'm going to get but no, it wasn't difficult. It wasn't at all. It just happened.
It just happened. So you were focusing on the process more than you were focusing on the goal. Is that right?
Absolutely. I don't have an end goal. And as I said earlier, it's not for me about the physical weight of what I obviously have an idea of how much I want to weigh and what I want to look like. But for me, the mindset change, and that's what you guys helped me with, was that it's the habits that I want to change, and it's the lifestyle. Because the kickback is that I have huge amount of energy. I'm far happier human being, and everybody in my life is happier. And it's not because I've lost the weight. It's because I've got a a headspace change, attitude to things that is different. And I want to carry on changing these habits. I mean, I haven't solved the problem. I did eat the cupcake yesterday, but I know that
you're not a bad person.
I'm not going to go and eat the cake today. So I might have another cupcake down the line, and I know that that's not something I want to do regularly because it's not healthy for me. But so that was fun. That's me, and yeah.
But that's cool because I think a lot of people, like the two questions I've had, or the three, the three things where people sign up, they're like, can I never eat a pizza ever again? That's the first one. And then they say, what about chocolate? And then the third one is, can I drink? And so I think if this was advertised as like, you're done, no cupcakes, no pizza.
I mean, you wouldn't have lifted off the ground.
Last 5 minutes, or you just run a mile. But knowing that you can, some people, I think if you're type 2 diabetic, maybe, probably less frequently, but many people can live normal lives.
What's normal life? What is a normal life?
Yeah. What is a normal life? Yeah. But
none of us have a normal life even before COVID.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. I think what I was just saying is that you can't, the door is open to like, no, I don't like the word cheat because it like adds morality to the whole thing. It's more like you can still enjoy yourself and indulge, but the idea is to make healthier decisions, more healthy.
I think it's about, and I think, we discussed it in one of the psych things, is if you're going to do it, give yourself permission. Don't be nasty. I mean, beat yourself up about it. It's a choice. Either you're going to do it or you don't, but don't half do it. I mean, I'm not advocating that you go out and drink a bottle of whiskey with like eating cake, but if it happens, it happens. Don't mourn the whole thing and just carry on. You've decided, committed to a process, and carry on.
Exactly. So tell us now, like the results. Tell me about the pain, the joints, the weight. Like, what is it? What are you dealing with now that's improved? What are the benefits you're experiencing?
Well, I was really struggling with my knees. I had 2 knee replacements, and it was bone on bone. And I thought that when I had those knee replacements, then I would get more energy and I'd lose weight, and it didn't happen. And I continued with the pain. Obviously, there's because of the weight on those joints, even though I had new knees. So that was a huge difference. I mean, I'm a bit creaky in the winter now, but I have no pain. So I've become more active. I'm more positive. I've got more energy, that's for sure. That's not linked to the knees, but it's linked to not having sugar in my system, and which is like glue. And that was very scary to give up, but I mean, I'm sold on that. I have a sweet tooth, and I'm struggling with some things with coffee, sweet coffee, and sweeteners, which I don't like having. But so
does that mean you still have sugar in your coffee, or are you talking about like the hazelnut?
No, I haven't had sugar in my coffee since we started.
Okay.
But I use sweetener, so I want to get off that sweet tooth feeling of wanting a replacement for sugar, and start enjoying the food. Just exactly link back to the conversation about enjoying the sweetness naturally in food, like the onions and that. So, but I have got a weakness for sweet coffee.
There are a lot of people who never change that. So I know people who've been, I think Sally Ann, well, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying this, but when we were writing Real Meal, she had been on a health black for probably 20 years. She still carried stevia around in her handbag. And I'm the guy who's sitting in the meeting with Tim Noakes trying to get him to like join my book team, and I like break open a sugar sachet at the table.
my difficulty is, and it's a journey on that habit breaking. It's still a habit, so I know that I'll run down, and you had something in your mindset thing about take away the temptation, put it somewhere else. I know that if I start breaking open one sugar thing, then it'll be another down the road. So, and I'm not saying that's how it should be. It's just a habit that I still need to work on. And so I need to take the temptation away.
Well, so let's talk about the things that you're working on still, and perhaps you could tell us about what you see in the future for your weight. Like, will you ever join another program again? And if so, what kind of program do you think it would be? And then maybe just what you're doing for yourself to manage yourself. Because I think people think you hit goal and then that's it, but obviously it's not.
No, obviously it's not. I mean, I lost actually 27 was the amount, and then I bounced back up a little bit because I've gone a bit off the tracks for personal reasons, and it had a little bit too much fun lately, and so I popped back. But in the long run, I'm just going to carry on track. I mean, I've got another 20 kgs to lose, I believe, and that's where I'm hoping I'll end up. But I mean, if I'm happy somewhere down the line with whatever weight, I don't mind. But I want to be healthy and I want to be eating properly. And the challenges that I've had are dairy. Those are the goals that I want to get off as much as possible. I'm hoping if I can financially afford it, and I'm not saying that I think your courses are very good value for money. I would like to certainly be on one of the ones that psychology, particularly. I can do the reading up of the health and that, but I think that those are quite awesome. And it certainly is the long game. Those courses. You can't. All the other stuff is invaluable, yes, but you can't. You're not going to be the 2% down the road. You're not going to be that 2%. You're going to fall off the wagon if you haven't sorted your head out. And stop that nonsense about body image and blah blah blah. We know you're going to have to join the course to get that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't want you to skip over it too fast. It's a big deal. Okay. I think. No, I suppose I'm just on my soapbox here, but the emotional eating. I think
he's not paying me, by the way. He's not paying me.
No. I mean, I'm almost talking as much as you, so it's not the greatest interview, but I'm not you. I'm saying
I beg your pardon.
Nothing. Yeah. But I think people forget. People often think that emotional eating needs to be solved with food. Like I get a lot of people saying, I'd like a meal plan because I'm an emotional eater, and it's the same things like walking into like a bar and saying, I'd like to stop drinking because I have a drinking problem. It's like obviously you need to stop drinking, but the solution is not to stop drinking, even though that is the outcome that you're looking for. The solution is to deal with all the stuff that's driving you to drink. And I think that if we could get that message out, it's really important. So and I think people are scared of emotions. They're like, oh, that sounds so uncomfortable and awkward and like gooey, but it's critical. And I'm so glad you've mentioned it like 3 or 4 times, because you're right. People won't keep the weight off unless they deal with the reason they're eating, as opposed to just.
Actually, I fell into that trap last month, of getting excited and happy, and then yay, and it's like, party. Yeah, and then there was a down, and it was like, oh no, food is my comfort, like, celebrate all those things, which are classic, and but again, I wasn't too. What the course gave me was that I acknowledged that that's what it was, and that's not how I want to be in the future, and that's not how I want to enjoy highs and lows by stuffing stuff into my mouth that I think is nice and comforting or celebratory. I don't want to do it, but that's what happened, and there it was, and that's made me so aware, and that's what I'm very grateful for.
Awesome. Well, Karen, it was an absolute pleasure having you as part of Real Meal, and even more pleasurable to hear how successful you've been. And that was very little to do with us and much more to do with the effort that you put in. So I wanted to say congratulations to you and the results you've achieved from all the effort you've put in. It's outstanding, and also really impressive that you were able to crush that much weight in such a short period of time. So you seriously dedicated and obviously determined and goal-driven, but more grateful that you'd come and share that with us. So thank you very much for joining me and for sharing your story with everyone else.
Thanks, Jono. That's very kind, but it's a team. It's a team effort, and you're part of the. Well, you're the head of the team. So yes, I couldn't have done it without you guys.
Awesome. Well, all the best, and please stay in touch.
Thank you.